He thought I was weak. He thought the moment I was pushing our daughter into the world was the perfect time to steal my name off the deed and add hers. He thought no one would believe a hormonal, postpartum woman. But he did not know about my work, my friends at the county recorder's office, or that in 3 seconds I would destroy his entire empire right in front of his partners. My name is Scarlett West. The Caldwell residence in Everline, Colorado, was suffocating. It was a $7 million monument to my husband's ego, all glass and cold steel jutting out over the valley. Tonight, it was filled with the braying laughter of developers and local politicians, all gathered for a party celebrating what Damon called the 500-unit milestone for his project. It was a lie. This was not a corporate event. This was a housewarming. It was Sloane Hart, his mistress, standing by the ridiculous floor-to-ceiling fireplace, welcoming people to a home that was still legally mine, as if she were the lady of the manor, and I, the actual wife, was treated as a ghost with a pulse. Damon had insisted I come. "It's important for appearances, Scarlett," he'd said, his voice implying my recent grasp on reality was tenuous at best. "Just smile. You can do that. Can't you?" Now, I understood why. Sloane, in a pristine white dress that screamed virginal innocence she didn't possess, had glided over to me not 10 minutes ago. She didn't hand me the tray of champagne flutes. She simply left it on a side table near me, gesturing with a manicured hand. "Be a dear and pass these around. The catering staff is just overwhelmed." Her eyes smiled, but her mouth was a tight line of possession. So I did. I, Scarlett West, who had co-signed the loan for this very house, was serving drinks. With every step, I felt the whispers slide past my ears, sharp as needles. "That's her. Yes, Damon's wife. Heard she's having a terrible time. You know, postpartum. Completely fell apart after the baby. Such a shame. Damon's been a saint. Looks terrible, doesn't she? So, fragile. Fragile." I gripped the silver tray, my knuckles white. Avery was only 3 months old, sleeping safe at my mother's house, blessedly unaware of this charade. I had been weak, I had been exhausted, hormonal, and terrified. But I was not fragile, not anymore. I was a tightly wound spring, and they were all tap dancing on the trigger. I saw Damon across the room. He was holding court by the massive windows. Sloane plastered to his side, her hand resting proprietorially on his forearm. He looked my way and gave a small, impatient nod, a gesture that meant, "Keep moving, keep smiling, play the part." My hand trembled. It was not from weakness, but from a rage so pure and cold, it threatened to freeze my blood. One of the flutes on the tray clinked against another. The sound was too loud in my head. I tried to steady it, but the tremor was uncontrollable. The lie of the evening, the smell of Sloane's bitter orange perfume, the weight of their pity, it was too much. The silver tray tilted. A single champagne flute slid, hung in the air for a perfect, agonizing second, and then fell. It shattered on the imported white Italian tile. The sound was a gunshot in the crowded room. Laughter died. The music seemed to dip. 100 pairs of eyes swiveled to me. A golden pool of champagne and glittering glass shards spread at my feet. A tiny, sharp fragment had flown up. Slicing the palm of my right hand, I watched, detached, as a bright red drop of my own blood fell and mixed with the expensive champagne. Silence. The entire $7 million room went utterly still. Damon's face was stone. He didn't move from his spot. Didn't come to me. He just stared, his disappointment radiating across the space between us. Sloane, beside him, pressed a hand to her mouth, but I saw the corners of her eyes crinkle. She was loving this. Proof. Here was the unstable wife, making a scene. Then Damon spoke. His voice was not raised. It was flat, cold, and carried to every corner of the silent room. "Clean it up, Scarlett. Not, are you okay? Not, someone get a broom? Just an order, like I was the help. Sloane let out a tiny, high-pitched giggle, quickly disguised as a cough, a hostess, embarrassed for her clumsy guest. I felt the blood sting. Humiliation burned up my neck, hot and acidic. I bent down, my knees cracking slightly, my eyes blurring as I reached for the largest piece of the broken flute. I was the broken thing on the floor. This was the image he wanted, the unstable, depressed, clumsy wife, kneeling in glass while the other woman stood beside him in white. And then, in the pocket of my black jumpsuit, my phone vibrated. It was not a call. It was the specific, short buzz I had set for one person. My vision cleared, the sound of the party, the sting in my hand. It all receded. I pulled the phone out, shielding the screen with my body as I crouched. One new message, from Tessa, my friend at the county recorder's office. My thumb, shaking only slightly now, tapped the notification. The message was short, the words like tactical strikes. File is public. That quitclaim transfer from the day you gave birth, the one he filed using the spousal exception while you were under anesthesia, it just hit the main database, open for public request, copy sent to your secure email. Go get him, Scar. I closed my eyes for 1 second. I inhaled the smell of spilled champagne and my own blood. When I opened them, the world was in high definition. Slowly, I straightened up. I did not bother with the glass. I looked across the room at my husband. For the first time all night, I smiled. It was not the shaky, placating smile he expected. It was a real smile, wide and sharp, and it did not reach my eyes. He saw it. He looked confused, then narrowed his eyes. He thought it was surrender. He thought I had finally broken, giggling into the void. He gave a small, condescending smirk and turned back to his conversation, dismissing me. He shouldn't have done that. With my bloody thumb, I tapped my screen. I opened the email draft I had prepared 3 weeks ago. The subject line was in all caps. The body of the email contained 3 video files, 2 audio recordings, and a single, beautifully scanned PDF with notations by my lawyer. I scrolled down the Tussaud list. My own special group of guests I had confirmed were here tonight. Harper Quinn, my lawyer, standing near the bar. Miguel Torres, my private investigator, blending in with the catering staff. Franklin Caldwell, my father-in-law, looking imperious by the fireplace, the one man Damon was terrified of, and 2 others, Mr. Davies, the county's chief property investigator, and Ms. Reyes, an assistant district attorney, both coincidentally invited by Franklin at my request. My thumb hovered over the blue send button. 1, the antique grandfather clock in the foyer, a Caldwell heirloom, began to chime the hour, 9 o'clock. I pressed send. 2, Damon's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, his face still flushed with confidence, annoyed at the interruption. He glanced at the screen, probably expecting a stock alert. 3, I watched his face. I watched the confidence curdle. I watched his tan drain away, leaving a sick, pale gray. His eyes widened, scanning the text, his hand tightening on the phone so hard I thought he might break it. He read the subject line, the one I had memorized, the one that was now on the phones of every important person in this room. Complaint. Fraudulent property transfer during spousal medical incapacitation in labor. A chorus of pings and buzzes echoed his, all around the room. Phones were being pulled from pockets and purses. The low hum of conversation stopped, replaced by the sharp intake of breaths and confused murmurs. The air in the room didn't just chill, it froze. Damon's head snapped up, his eyes finding mine across the sea of suddenly pale faces. The look on his face was no longer confusion, it was pure, unadulterated panic. I stood tall, letting the blood from my palm drip slowly onto the white tile. They were all staring at me now, not with pity, but with shock. They thought this story started tonight, with a broken glass. Damon thought it started the day he met Sloane. I knew the truth, this whole story, this entire night. It all began in the delivery room. in the 40 minutes he left me alone to push. 3 months ago, I was not the ghost in the $7 million house. I was Scarlett West, Senior Program Coordinator at the BrightPath Family Center. BrightPath is a name that exists only on paper in a locked filing cabinet. We are a community-funded nonprofit, the kind that doesn't host galas or have glossy brochures. We operate out of a secure, nondescript office building, and our entire purpose is to help women escape. Specifically, to help them escape the men who use money as a leash. I spent my days analyzing spreadsheets, teaching women how to spot siphoned paychecks, how to open shadow bank accounts, and how to document financial coercion. I was an expert in the legal loopholes men use to manage assets, which was a polite term for stealing them. I saw it every single day. I saw how they weaponized joint accounts and used temporary authorizations to bleed their partners dry. I was, by profession, immune to the tricks, or so I thought. I was 8 months pregnant with our daughter, Avery. I was still driving my old, rattling SUV to work every day, the one I'd had since before I even met Damon. My ankles were swollen. I survived on antacids, and my entire body felt borrowed. While I was counseling women on how to flee with $10 and a gas station map, Damon was closing multi-million-dollar deals with Caldwell Meridian Developments. He was the golden boy of Everline. He'd come home to the house we bought, the house my savings had helped secure the deposit for, and he'd toss his keys on the Marble Island. Just finalized the Vista Ridge contract. Scar, he'd boom, smelling of expensive whiskey and self-congratulation. It's a huge win. Bonuses are going to be insane. His world was getting bigger, and mine was shrinking to the size of a nursery. The signs were there, looking back. They weren't just signs, they were billboards. But when you are that pregnant, you are living in a fog of survival, focused only on the finish line. The first was the paperwork. "Honey," he said one evening, rubbing my shoulders as I sat at the kitchen table, trying to pay our bills online. "You look exhausted. Why are you still handling this stuff? Just let me take over. Let me consolidate everything. Put it all under the company account manager. It'll be so much cleaner. You need to focus on the baby." My training at BrightPath screamed no, but I was exhausted. The sheer weight of the baby pressed on my ribs, and I was in a normal marriage. I told myself I was married to a busy, successful man, not one of the monsters I dealt with at work. "I don't know. Damon, I like knowing where everything is," I'd said. "And you will," he'd countered, smooth as glass. "It's just for efficiency. I'll have everything organized. You won't have to lift a finger. You need to rest." I let him redirect the bank statements to his office P.O. box. I let him consolidate our joint savings into an account I couldn't see, one he said had a better interest yield. "It was," he explained, "just keeping the clutter down at home." The second, and most critical, red flag came about 2 weeks before my due date. He came home with his leather briefcase and a cheerful look. "Good news, baby. I got the hospital paperwork sorted." "I thought I already did that," I asked, shifting on the couch. "This is just legal stuff. Authorizations," he said, pulling out a small stack of papers. He set them on the coffee table next to my mug of raspberry leaf tea. "It's just some temporary authorization forms. Standard procedure." I picked them up. The language was dense. "What exactly am I authorizing?" "Just in case," he said, gesturing vaguely. "You know, when you're in the hospital, if an insurance issue comes up, or a bank payment is due, I need to be able to handle it without bothering you. You're going to be busy, Scar, you'll be in labor, or recovering. The last thing you'll want is me asking you to sign a check." He was so reasonable. He was so caring. I saw the words, temporary power of attorney and spousal authorization for financial management. My blood should have run cold. I should have thrown the papers in his face. I should have called a lawyer. But I was 8.5 months pregnant. My back was a column of fire. The nursery wasn't finished. My mother was flying in next week, and he was my husband, the father of the child kicking my ribs. He was just trying to help, so I signed where he pointed. "Thanks, baby," he said, kissing my forehead. See, one less thing for you to worry about. Sloane Hart appeared right around that time. She was introduced as external PR for Caldwell Meridian, a genius Damon had hired to handle the new project's branding. She was young, maybe 25, all sharp cheekbones and expensive, severe black outfits. She came to the house several times to strategize with Damon. The first time she walked in, she looked around our living room, at the comfortable sofa I'd spent months choosing, and she smiled. This is very traditional. She didn't say it to me. She said it at Damon, as if I were just a piece of the furniture. She talked as if she already lived there. The flow from the kitchen to the patio is terrible for entertaining. Damon, she'd said, ignoring me as I stood there, holding my own belly. We'll need to address that. A few days later, I went to grab Damon's wallet from his car. A sleek black Audi I rarely drove. The moment I opened the door, I was hit by it. Perfume. It wasn't my light, floral scent. This was heavy, musky, and expensive, bitter orange. It was sharp and invasive, and it was radiating from the passenger seat. It was her. I knew it, with the cold, sick certainty that requires no proof. But what was I supposed to do? Start a war a week before my due date? Accuse my husband of cheating when I was at my most vulnerable, swollen, and emotional? I did what so many women do. I put it in a box. I told myself I was hormonal, paranoid. I told myself it was a harmless flirtation, a symptom of his stress over the new project. I told myself that once Avery arrived, it would all stop. The baby would fix it. The baby would anchor him. So I focused. I packed the hospital bag and unpacked it. I laminated my birth plan. I called my mother and confirmed her flight. My entire world, my entire formidable intellect, was diverted. It was all channeled into one, primal, all-consuming task, bringing my daughter into the world safely. That was the K-hole. That was the vulnerability he was counting on. Damon didn't want a stupid wife. He knew I wasn't stupid. He wanted a distracted one. He knew, with chilling precision, that the one event in my life powerful enough to pull my focus from the fine print was the very act of giving that life. He used my strength, my focus, my biological imperative, as the perfect cover for his crime. He wasn't just cheating. He was strategically, patiently, waiting for me to be blinded by motherhood. The night Avery was born, the world shrank to the four walls of the delivery room and the rhythmic, cruel peaks of the fetal heart monitor. The contractions were tidal waves, pulling me under, holding me down, and then releasing me for 90 seconds of gasping breath before the next one hit. Damon was there. He played the part, holding my hand, his knuckles white. Breathe, Scar, just breathe. You're doing great. But his eyes were not on me. They were on the clock. Every time the nurse came in, he'd ask how much longer. He seemed agitated, but I assumed it was the anxiety of a new father. After 7 hours, as the pain became a white, roaring fire, he squeezed my hand, a little too hard. Honey, I'll be right back. I managed to get the words out. Where don't leave. I have to, he said, his voice a low, urgent whisper. It's the insurance. The admissions desk just called. There's a problem with our coverage. They're saying the pre-authorization didn't go through. It's a mess. I have to go down and sign the payment guarantees. I don't want them stalling your care. Now, I panted, the wave building again. It won't take long. 40 minutes. Tops. I'll be back before you know it. He kissed my sweaty forehead. You've got this. He was gone. The door clicked shut, leaving me with the nurse, who looked at me with a practiced, pitying smile. Men, she said. They panic at the paperwork. I didn't have time to process it. The doctor came in. Okay, Scarlett, you're at 10. It's time to push. While I bore down, my body splitting apart in a way I could never have imagined, focusing on a single spot on the ceiling and praying for it to end. Damon was not at the admissions desk. He was 2 floors down, in the administrative wing, standing under the same fluorescent lights. He was at the small, glassed-in office of the hospital's resident notary public, a service usually reserved for signing wills and emergency medical directives. He held the small stack of papers I had signed in my 7th month, the ones he'd called temporary authorizations. While I was pushing our daughter into the world, he was signing his name on a quitclaim deed. He was using the power of attorney I had foolishly granted him, citing spousal incapacitation. My incapacitation, the document legally and correctly, stated that I was in the process of a major medical event and not of sound mind to conduct business. He signed, and in that quiet, sterile room, my name, Scarlett West Caldwell, was struck from the deed of the house on Everline Ridge 14B. In the grantee space, he added a new name, Sloane Hart. He paid the notary, who stamped the document with a heavy, final thud. 40 minutes later, he was back. Just as Avery took her first breath, he rushed to my side, his face a mask of awe and relief, just in time to cut the cord. "I'm here, Scar, I'm here," he cried, and he kissed me, his lips cold from the hallway air. "She's perfect. You're perfect." I wept with relief, believing he was my partner, believing we had just become a family. The next day, I was in a fog of bliss and exhaustion. The pain was a dull, distant throb, managed by the glorious, steady drip of painkillers. I was incoherent, sleepy, and overwhelmed with love for the tiny 7-pound creature in the plastic bassinet beside me. Damon was a different man. He was softer, more attentive than he had been in months. He brought me ice chips. He held Avery against his chest. He stroked my hair. The bitter orange perfume, the late nights at the office, it all seemed like a paranoid, hormonal dream. The baby had fixed us. He was here. He loved us. I was so disarmed, so open, so stupidly, blissfully wrong. 2 weeks later, the fog had lifted, replaced by the relentless, sleepless grind of new motherhood. I was at home, at 2 a.m, rocking a fussy Avery in the nursery, my eyes burning. My phone buzzed on the changing table. A text. It was from Tessa Morgan, a friend from college who worked a mind-numbing data entry job at the county recorder's office. "Tess, hey, weird question. Did you guys refi the house?" I squinted, my brain struggling to catch up. "Me, what no? Why Tess?" "A quitclaim deed just got flagged for final processing. It's your parcel number. The transfer date is, well, it's 2 weeks ago." Isn't that when the baby was born? A cold dread, sharper than any contraction, seized my chest. "Send it to me, now. Tess," to my old email. "Tess, it's public record. So, okay, sending. You guys okay?" I didn't answer. I put Avery in her crib, pulled my laptop from my bag, and opened my old private email account. The email was there. One attachment. I opened the PDF. I saw the legal description of our property. I saw the grantor line Damon Caldwell and Scarlett West Caldwell. I saw the grantee line Damon Caldwell and Sloane Hart. My breath stopped. I scrolled to the signature page. Damon's, bold and confident, and in the space for my own, the neat, printed words, "Signed on behalf of Scarlett West Caldwell by Damon Caldwell, as power of attorney," and the notary stamp, dated, timed, the exact 40-minute window he was arguing with insurance. It wasn't just betrayal, it was an invasion. He had used the most vulnerable, powerful moment of my life as a legal loophole, but the true horror was in the addendum, a supplemental clause attached to the transfer. It was not standard legal boilerplate. It was crafted. In the event that Scarlett West Caldwell exhibits symptoms of postpartum mental instability, persistent postpartum depression, or any other related behavioral incapacity, as determined by a physician, sole managerial rights of all associated family assets, including but not limited to financial accounts and trusts linked to the property, shall revert to Damon Caldwell for management and protection. I read the words behavioral incapacity 3 times, and I understood. This wasn't just about stealing a house. This was the foundation. This was the first brick in a wall they were building to box me in, to paint me as unstable. Damon's recent, sudden concerns about my mood, his suggestions that I talk to someone, his insistence that I was overwhelmed, it wasn't concern, it was narrative building. They didn't just want the house. They were creating the legal leverage they would need to take my daughter. They would drain the assets. And when I fought back, they would produce this document, along with a doctor's note, and declare me an unfit, unstable mother. Sloan would move in, and I would be on the street, fighting for supervised visitation. This was the greatest humiliation. He hadn't just cheated. He hadn't just stolen. He had weaponized my own body, my own hormones, my own motherhood, against me. He'd done it while I was screaming, sweating, and bleeding to give him a child he was now using as a PR shield for his perfect new life. I looked at Avery, her tiny chest rising and falling. The ice that had started in my stomach now filled my entire body. The exhaustion vanished. I did not cry. Crying was a privilege. I turned back to the laptop. I saved the file in 3 separate, secure locations, one on a cloud server he didn't know existed. I documented the time. I took a screenshot of Tessa's text. Then I picked up my phone. I scrolled to my contacts and found the name I had saved a year ago. After a fundraising luncheon I'd attended for BrightPath. Harper Quinn, the shark of Denver family law. The woman who famously, and publicly, dismantled a real estate developer for hiding assets. I hit the call button. It was 2:30 in the morning. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Quinn, her voice was awake and sharp as a razor. My name is Scarlett West, I said, my voice perfectly level, the baby monitor humming beside me. My husband just stole my house while I was in labor, and I have the paperwork to prove he's planning to take my daughter next. There was a pause. I heard the sound of a pen clicking. Meet me at my office at 7 a.m., Harper said. And Scarlett, do not call him, do not confront him, do not cry. From this moment on, you are the most stable, boring, postpartum mother this world has ever seen. Let him think he's won. At exactly 7 a.m., I walked into the lobby of Harper Quinn's law firm in downtown Denver. The air smelled like old money and industrial-strength coffee. I hadn't slept. I hadn't showered. I had Avery strapped to my chest in a carrier. Her tiny, warm body the only thing keeping me grounded. I probably looked exactly like the person Damon was pretending I was, a woman on the verge of collapse. Harper Quinn was not a soft lawyer. She didn't have tissues on her desk. Her office was a corner unit on the 42nd floor, all glass and sunlight, with a merciless view of the mountains. She was in her 50s, wearing a knife-sharp black suit, and her hair was a severe silver bob. She was famous for 2 things: winning back assets from real estate developers and only taking cases that genuinely, morally outraged her. I sat down, put the laptop on her desk, and opened the PDF. He did it while I was pushing, I said, my voice flat. Harper didn't offer sympathy. She leaned in, her eyes scanning the document. She read the main page, then scrolled to the addendum, the behavioral incapacity clause. She read it twice, then she pushed back from her desk, stood up, and walked to the window. For a full minute, she just looked out at the city. They really are the stupidest criminals, she said, more to the skyline than to me. She turned back, her eyes electric. Scarlett, let me tell you what judges in this state hate. They hate cheaters. Sure, they hate men who hide money, but more than anything, they hate a coward. And there is nothing more cowardly than this. She tapped the screen. Using childbirth as a legal cover it's novel, in a disgusting kind of way. So you'll take the case? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Take the case. Harper laughed, a dry, humorless sound. I'm going to end him, but we have to be smart. He'll say this was a misunderstanding. He'll say he was just managing assets, while you were overwhelmed and emotional. He'll say you asked him to take over. Our job is to prove, beyond any doubt, that this wasn't a helpful husband. This was a premeditated conspiracy to defraud you." She sat down. All business. "The addendum is the key. That's the intent. But we need more. We need to know who she is. Sloane Hart." Harper picked up her phone. "Miguel, it's Quinn. I've got one for you. It's a developer. Yes, one of those. This one's special. He stole his wife's house while she was in labor. Yes, you heard me. I'm sending you the file. I want everything on him and the grantee. Her name is Sloane Hart. I want to know where they eat, where they sleep, and especially, I want to know every single time she steps foot in that house. I want a timeline." She hung up and looked at me. "Miguel Torres used to be financial crimes with DPD. Now he's the best PI in the state. He looks like a guy who fixes copy machines. People talk to him. He'll get us what we need." 3 days later, we met in a secure conference room at Harper's office. Miguel was nothing like I expected. He was soft-spoken, in his late 40s, and wore a nondescript polo shirt. He blended into the background. He slid a thin folder across the table to Harper. "It's not just an affair, Ms. Quinn," he said quietly, looking at me with a flicker of professional pity. "He's not just sleeping with her, Scarlett, he's in business with her." Harper opened the folder. Her eyebrows shot up. "Shell companies. 3 of them," Miguel said, "all registered to a P.O. box in Wyoming, all listing Sloane Hart as the sole proprietor. Hart Materials, LLC, Everline Project Solutions, Ridge Imports. They were all incorporated within the last 6 months." He pulled out another sheet. "This is the interesting part. I got a look at the preliminary invoices for Damon's new project, the Big Vista Ridge one, the supplier for all the raw timber, drywall, and high-end fixtures. It's Hart Materials, and the price he's approving is marked up by at least 30, sometimes 40%. Caldwell Meridian's partners pay the inflated price. Sloane's company gets the cash, and I'll bet my pension she and Damon are splitting it." My mind, the one I used at BrightPath, kicked back into gear. "He's not just stealing from me," I said. "He's embezzling from his own company, from his own father. And using the house as his playground to do it," Harper added, a grim smile on her face. "This is no longer a divorce case, Scarlett. This is a multi-count fraud indictment waiting to happen, and that is our leverage." She leaned forward, her expression intense. "Which brings us to your part. This is the hardest thing I'm going to ask you to do. You cannot be the smart, capable woman who runs a nonprofit. From this moment on, you are the person Damon thinks you are. You are the person he needs you to be. You want me to... what? You are going to play the part," Harper said, her voice like steel. "You are the broken, emotional, postpartum wreck. You are forgetful. You are weepy. You are overwhelmed. You are going to lean on him. You will thank him for handling the finances because your head is just too foggy. You will let him and his girlfriend get comfortable. Let them get overconfident. Let them get sloppy. We need them to believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that they have gotten away with it." So I became an actress. The next day, I drove to Boulder, 2 towns over, with Avery sleeping in the back. I walked into a small community credit union where no one knew my name, opened a new checking account with my old pre-marriage identification, and set up a new direct deposit for my salary from BrightPath. The account was paperless. The notifications sent to the new, secure email I'd created, my half of our old joint account, the one Damon was managing, could rot. Then came the phone calls. I began to secretly record every conversation I had with Damon. My phone had a simple app. It was easy. "Hey, Scar," his voice would say, dripping with false concern. "Just checking in. How's your mood today? You feeling a little more level?" I would let my voice crack. I would sniff. "Oh, Damon," I'd whisper, rocking Avery for effect. "I'm just so... I don't know. I'm exhausted. I keep crying for no reason. I love her, but I just feel... empty. I don't feel like myself." I could hear the relief in his silence, the small, satisfied pause before he spoke. "It's okay, baby. It's just the hormones. It's that postpartum stuff. The doctor warned us. It's perfectly normal. It'll pass. Listen, don't you worry your pretty head about any of the big stuff. Okay, I'm handling all the finances, all the bills. You just focus on you and Avery. That's all that matters." "Thank you," I'd whisper. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "I know," he'd say. "I've got you. I've got everything." I'd hang up, my hand steady, my blood like ice. I'd hit stop and save the file. Damon Audio 14. Wave. I sent it to Harper. Her reply came back in minutes. "He's building his behavioral incapacity file, and you're building your conspiracy to commit fraud file. Ours is better." Our team was set. It wasn't a big army. It was just us. Me, the unstable mother. Harper, the legal shark in the glass tower. Miguel, the ghost with a camera who saw everything. And Tessa, our inside source at the county recorder's office, the one who would tell us the exact moment Damon's fraudulent deed became public record. It was just 4 of us against Damon and his entire Caldwell Meridian machine. But Harper was right. We didn't need an army. We just needed the perfect, well-lit stage to turn on the lights. Playing the part of the broken woman was disgustingly easy. I just had to channel the bone-deep exhaustion I already felt and strip away the defenses. I let my performance seep into our daily life. I accidentally let the formula container run empty, forcing Damon to make a frantic run to the 24-hour pharmacy at 2 a.m. I stood in the kitchen and forgot I was boiling water, letting it steam away until the kettle shrieked and Damon came running in. "Scarlett, what's wrong with you?" he'd ask, his voice a mix of impatience and feigned concern. I'd look up, my eyes wide and vacant. "I don't know," I'd whisper. I was thinking about the baby. I lost track." The final piece of the act was Avery's 2-month checkup. I messed up the appointment time. I sent him a panicked text, knowing he was in a board meeting. "Damon, I don't know how this happened. I wrote down 10:30, but the receptionist said it was at 9:30. They're charging me a cancellation fee. I'm so stupid. I'm so tired." His response came an hour later. It wasn't anger. It was a sigh of weary, profound disappointment. "It's fine. Scar, just, please, let me handle the scheduling from now on." "Okay, you've clearly got enough on your mind." "I'm sorry," I texted back. "I think the lack of sleep is making me foggy." It was the perfect, unimpeachable excuse. He was eating it up. He was so confident in my collapse that he got sloppy. Damon assumed the baby monitor we'd installed in the nursery was just for Avery. He didn't know I had the high-end model, the one that recorded audio to a secure cloud, accessible from my phone. His home office was just down the hall, and he often left his door open while he was on speakerphone. 2 weeks into my performance, I got the evidence I was waiting for. I was rocking Avery in our bedroom when the audio feed from the nursery, which picked up his office conversation, started recording. It was his voice, low and conspiratorial. "She's just not the same, Sloane," he was saying. "She's not the Scarlett I married. She's a shell. Honestly, it's a problem." Sloane's tinny voice came back over the speaker. "I told you, baby. It's the postpartum. She's unstable. It's sad. Really. But it's also a risk. What if she does something irrational? We have to protect ourselves." "She won't," Damon said. But he sounded tired. "She's just sad. She can barely remember to buy milk." "Sad people do stupid things, Damon," Sloane snapped. "You have all that money tied up in the Everline house. You need to protect the asset. What if she tries to challenge you? What if she tries to get a lawyer?" There was a pause, and then I heard Damon laugh. It was a short, sharp, ugly sound. "A lawyer, Sloane. She can't even remember her own doctor's appointments. She's not calling a lawyer. She's too busy crying over spilled milk. I've got this handled." I saved the file. Audio Exhibit A, MP3. He was so sure of my incompetence that he didn't even bother to log out of his personal email on the kitchen tablet. I had, of course, set up a silent forwarding rule weeks ago for any message containing my name or the property address. An email from Sloan to Damon came through at midnight. The subject line was, "Protecting the asset." Damon, it read. Following up on our conversation, that behavioral incapacity clause you had added to the deed is smart, but it's only a half measure. If she's truly unstable, we need to fully secure the house. We can't have her instability threatening our capital. I think you should move to add me as a full, equal co-owner with rights of survivorship, not just a grantee. We can present it as a necessary step to stabilize the asset while she's recovering. It's just smart business. His reply, forwarded to my secret account just minutes later, was a single line. "Smart. You're right. Let me talk to the attorney. We'll get it done." I stared at the screen, a cold clarity settling over me. I finally understood Sloan. This wasn't just about money for her, or even about Damon. It was about validation. She was pathologically greedy for a public title. She didn't want to be the mistress, the external PR hiding in shell companies. She wanted to be the wife. She wanted to host the parties. She wanted the mail addressed to her. She wanted to erase me. Her ambition was a glaring, gaping weakness, and I knew exactly how to exploit it. I ran into her a few days later at the overpriced organic market in Everline. I was in my uniform yoga pants with baby spit up on the shoulder, hair in a messy bun, dark circles under my eyes. "Sloan?" I said, my voice high and a little shaky. "Oh, hi. How are you?" She looked me up and down. Her gaze was pity mixed with contempt. "Scarlett, you look exhausted." "Oh, I am," I said, letting my voice crack, summoning a real tear from the memory of the hospital. I'm drowning. Sloan, Damon has been so supportive, and I know you've been a rock for him at the company. This is so embarrassing. But I'm terrible at this. The nursery, it's all wrong. And you have such incredible taste. I saw the layouts for the Vista project. Just amazing." I watched her posture change. She stood up straighter, the predator scenting weakness. "I was wondering, would you be willing to just look at it? Give me some pointers. I just want one room in that house to feel right. For Avery." Her smile was slow and proprietary. She was being invited in, by me, the wife. "Of course, Scarlett," she said, patting my arm in a dreadful, false gesture of solidarity. "I'd be happy to help out." She came over the next day. I had my phone propped up on the changing table, hidden between a stack of diapers and a teddy bear, the camera lens perfectly aimed, the video recording. "Oh, honey," she said. The moment she walked into Avery's room, she waved a dismissive, manicured hand at the pale yellow walls and the antique rocking chair that had been my grandmother's. No, this is all wrong. It's dreadfully drab. And this crib? The lines are so dated." She didn't just come with opinions. She had brought 2 men from an interior design firm with her, who were standing awkwardly in the hallway. "Okay, guys," she snapped, pointing at my grandmother's chair. "Let's get this out of here. This is going to Goodwill. The new acrylic armchair will go by the window, and the lucite crib I ordered will be centered on this wall. The wallpaper is all wrong. 2. We'll need to repaper." She was striding around the room, pointing, directing, erasing me. She had completely forgotten I was even there. "Thank you, Sloan," I whispered, playing my part. I couldn't do this on my own." She turned, her eyes bright with triumph. "I know. Scarlett, don't you worry about a thing. I'll make this place look perfect." I saved the file, Video Exhibit B, MP4. My performance was almost too good. That evening, Damon sat me down on the sofa, his face a mask of careful, practiced concern. "Scarlett, I'm worried about you," he said. "The missed appointments, the fogginess, the crying. I made an appointment for you." My stomach tightened. An appointment. With Dr. Allister. He's a friend of the family and he's the best. He specializes in helping women who are struggling with postpartum adjustment. I felt a flash of pure panic. This was it. The behavioral incapacity clause. He was sending me to his own doctor to get the diagnosis he needed. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and called Harper from the floor. The fan whirring. He's sending me to his doctor, I whispered. He's trying to get the diagnosis to take Avery. Good. Harper's voice was sharp. He's walking right into the trap. You're going to go. You'll be the perfect patient. You will be tired, vague, and overwhelmed. You will tell him you're sad. You will tell him you feel disconnected. You answer his questions. But Scarlett? You sign nothing. Not a release form. Not an insurance waiver. Not a payment authorization. You sign nothing. Go, then call me. I went. Dr. Allister's office was all beige and soft lighting. He was smooth, his voice a gentle murmur. He asked leading questions, and I gave him the performance of my life. I wept. I told him I felt disconnected from my old life. He nodded, his eyes full of false sympathy. This is very common, he said, scribbling on his notepad. We're going to call this a moderate postpartum adjustment disorder. Nothing to be ashamed of. We'll get you back on your feet. I knew that diagnosis, that piece of paper, would be in Damon's hands before I even started my car. This was the proof he needed. I met Harper and Miguel back at her office that night, shaking with a cold rage. It's perfect, Harper said, after I relayed the conversation. They are actively, and provably, conspiring to leverage a temporary recognized medical condition to defraud you of your assets. This is the intent we needed. That's not all they're doing, Miguel said. He looked grim. He slid another folder across the glass table. Damon has been busy. He'd pulled Damon's credit and recent loan applications. While you've been recovering, Miguel said. He took out a new loan, a big one, $5 million. My blood went cold. A loan for what against what? For a new hotel project in New Mexico, and he used the Everline house as collateral. I stared at him, the pieces clicking into place with a horrifying snap. The house wasn't in my name anymore. It was in his and Sloane's. He stole the house so he could leverage it, I whispered. It's worse than that. Scarlett, Harper said, her face hard as granite. This New Mexico project, it's another shell. Miguel looked into it. It's just a plot of land and a P.O. box. Damon is going to take that $5 million in cash, move it offshore, let the New Mexico project fail, and the bank will foreclose on the collateral. On my house, I whispered. On his and Sloane's house, Harper corrected. He gets the $5 million, cash free. He and Sloane walk away, and the bank seizes the property. By the time you get to court, you'll be fighting for a foreclosed asset that has a $5 million lien against it. You'd be left with nothing. Not just nothing, less than nothing. This wasn't a divorce. This was an execution. He was planning to burn the entire field, and me with it. I looked at Harper. The fog of my performance was gone. The ice was back. I'm not losing my house. Then we have to move, she said. We can't just stop the loan. You have no legal standing as long as that deed is in his name. We have to blow up the entire deal, publicly, and we have to do it before that loan closes in 60 days. I thought of Avery, sleeping peacefully at my mother's. I thought of Sloane, picking out wallpaper for my daughter's room. No, I said. We're not waiting 60 days. We're doing it now. The conference room at Harper Quinn's office became our war room. The glass walls that overlooked Denver felt like a fortress. We had the what? Now we were building the how. Harper stood in front of a large whiteboard, her surgical precision turning my domestic nightmare into a clean, prosecutable flowchart. This is the architecture of the crime, she said, her voice sharp. She drew a box. Step 1. The fraudulent transfer. Damon exploits the medical trauma of childbirth and a coerced power of attorney to illegally remove Scarlett from the deed. He adds Sloane Hart. She drew another box. Step 2. The manufactured narrative. He conspires with a compromised physician, Dr. Alistair, to build a false medical file. He's documenting postpartum adjustment disorder and behavioral incapacity. This is designed to neutralize Scarlett, making her an unreliable witness if she ever fights back. She drew a final, larger box. Step 3. The exit. He leverages the stolen asset, our house, as collateral for a $5 million fraudulent loan, tied to a shell project in New Mexico. He will default. The bank will seize the house, and he and Sloan will disappear with the cash, leaving Scarlett with a foreclosed property and a medical diagnosis that will cost her custody of her child. She capped the marker and turned to me and Miguel. It is a deliberate, methodical, multi-stage model for asset stripping. It's not just an affair, it's an execution. And he's nervous, I said, looking at my phone. Tessa just sent me an update from the recorder's office. This was Tessa's vital contribution, the internal access logs. Damon isn't just checking the public file, I read. He's been using his priority developer credentials to access the internal metadata. He's logged in 18 times since the transfer. 3 of those times were between 2 and 4 in the morning. He's not just checking if it's there. He's admiring his work. He's making sure it's locked down. That's our intent, Harper snapped, a thin smile on her face. That is not a man who made a mistake or misunderstood an agreement. That is a man checking his traps every single night. That's mens rea, Miguel. What do we have on the parasite? Miguel Torres leaned forward, sliding a thin folder across the table. Sloan Hart isn't just his partner in crime, he said. She's running her own game. He laid out the structure. Sloan's shell companies, the ones laundering money from Caldwell Meridian's inflated invoices, were just the beginning. Sloan is greedy, but she's also smart, Miguel said. She knows Damon is a risk, so she bought insurance. What kind of insurance? I asked. Caldwell Meridian's biggest competitor right now is Apex Construction. They're in a nasty bidding war over that big downtown zoning variance. Turns out, one of Sloan's other LLCs, Ridge Imports, has been receiving a monthly consulting fee from Apex for the last 2 months, $50,000 a pop. I stared at him. She's selling Damon's information. She's taking kickbacks from his direct competitor while simultaneously embezzling from his company. She's a snake, Miguel said simply. She has no loyalty to him. She's just loyal to the money. The moment Damon looks vulnerable, she will flip on him to save herself. She's not a partner. She's a liability. And that's our leverage against her. Good, Harper said. We'll use that. In the meantime, she picked up a thick, bound document. This is the preliminary file. It contains Miguel's findings on the embezzlement, the shell companies, and the kickbacks from Apex. It does not mention the house transfer or the baby. Why not? I asked. That's the worst part. Because, Harper said, that part isn't for a quiet investigator. The embezzlement file goes by confidential courier to the Everline County Financial Crimes Unit tomorrow. It's just enough to get them to open an investigation, to assign an agent, to get them in the room. She pointed at me. The rest of it. The part about him stealing your house while you were bleeding on a delivery table. That's our bomb. We don't hand that to an investigator in a beige office. We detonate it in public, in front of everyone he respects. While Harper built the legal case, I moved to protect what little I had left. Damon was so focused on his grand theft, he'd forgotten the small details. He'd forgotten the luxury SUV he'd given me for my birthday 2 years ago. It was titled in both our names, while he thought I was at a postpartum support group, crying into a cup of herbal tea. I was an hour away, in another county. I filed a transfer of title and paid the gift tax. I transferred the vehicle to my mother, who lived in another state. I took the new registration and the plates and mailed them to her. Damon never looked in the glove box. He never noticed the empty space in the garage. He was too busy. I returned to Harper's office. She had one last piece of the puzzle. It was her masterstroke. He thinks his entire plan hinges on that power of attorney you signed, she said. He's right. It does. So, we're going to invalidate it. How I signed it? Yes, Harper said. But when he used it is the problem. He used it on the day of Avery's birth. We are going to create a document that proves he had no legal right to do so. She slid a document across the table, an internal family gift agreement. What is this? This is a private, unfiled agreement between you and your mother. We are going to date it 2 weeks before Avery was born, and 2 weeks before he filed that quitclaim deed. We have a notary who will attest to the date. It's ironclad. I read the text. It was simple. In consideration of love and affection, and a desire to secure the future of my unborn child, I was gifting 50% of my 50% interest in the Everline house directly to my mother, to be held in an informal trust for Avery. I looked at Harper, the genius of it dawning on me. "That's right," she said, seeing the look on my face. When Damon walked into that hospital notary's office, he presented a POA giving him authority over your assets. But at that time, you no longer owned 100% of your share. You only owned 25%. He used that document to transfer all of your interest and interest you no longer fully possessed. He didn't just defraud you. He committed perjury on a notarized document. He defrauded the county. He defrauded Sloan Hart. The entire transfer is voidable. He's been checking the public file, but he never looked for a private family agreement. It was the kill shot. A perfectly legal maneuver that turned his entire grand scheme into a pathetic, fraudulent mess. Miguel walked in, holding his phone. He looked grim. "I've got the last piece," he said. He had taken a massive risk and bugged Damon's car. He hit play on an audio file. It was Damon's voice, speaking to his financial advisor. The call was dated the day after my appointment with Dr. Allister. "She's a complete mess." Damon's voice filled the room, brimming with confidence. "Total adjustment disorder. We have the diagnosis. Honestly, she'll sign anything I put in front of her right now. As long as I tell her it's for the baby, we are absolutely clear to leverage the asset. Move the $5 million. Harper stopped the recording. The silence in the room was absolute. "And there it is," she said, her voice cold as ice. "Conspiracy to defraud, coercion, and the intent to exploit a recognized medical condition for financial gain. This was the bomb. Damon hadn't just committed a financial crime. He hadn't just cheated on his wife. He had declared war on a new mother. He had weaponized the single most vulnerable moment in a woman's life, childbirth, to steal her home and her child. "It's a story," Harper said, stacking the files, "and the American media will eat it alive. Franklin Caldwell was not a man you just called. You did not drop by his house. He was the founder, the patriarch, the man who had built Caldwell Meridian from gravel and timber into a Colorado dynasty. He had retired from day-to-day operations, leaving his son, Damon, to run the empire, but he remained on the board, a silent, heavy shadow over every decision. He held court in a private office on the top floor of the original, brick and mahogany Caldwell building downtown, a relic of old money that looked down on the new glass towers Damon preferred. I walked in at 10 a.m. on a Thursday. I had left Avery with my mother. This was not a visit from a grieving mother. This was a corporate negotiation. Franklin had never liked me. It was not a personal animosity. It was a failure of my lineage. I was not from a name. I was a West, a family of teachers and civil servants. I was not a Denver Little Miss, and in his eyes, I was not an asset. His office smelled of leather and old maps. He was behind a desk the size of a small car, not a computer in sight. He looked up, his eyes the same cold blue as his son's, but with none of Damon's sloppy arrogance. "Scarlett," he did not stand. "I'm surprised to see you here. I was under the impression you weren't, that Damon was handling things." Damon's narrative, the unstable wife, it had reached the king. "Damon is a fool," I said. Franklin's posture changed. It was a fractional shift, but I saw it. I had his attention. "He's your fool," I continued, "and he's about to burn your name to the ground. I'm here to offer you a fire extinguisher." I placed the single, neatly bound document from Harper's office on the acres of polished mahogany. It was not a thick, messy pile. It was a surgical instrument. "What is this?" he asked, his voice like gravel. "This is your son, Franklin." He slid his glasses on and opened the file. I didn't let him browse. I directed him. "Page 2. That is the quitclaim deed for the Everline house, the one you gave us as a wedding gift. Please note the signature page." He signed for me, using a power of attorney. He flipped the page. "A POA? Standard? Efficient? Damon's always been efficient." He was testing me, pretending this was business as usual. "Please note the notary stamp," I said, my voice perfectly level. "The date, and the time." I watched him. He was a man who had built a company on timelines and deadlines. He processed the information instantly. His eyes flicked from the date to me, then back to the page. "This is..." He looked up, his face unreadable. "This is the day Avery was born." "It's the hour she was born," I corrected him. "At 3:16 p.m., while I was in active labor. Your son was 2 floors down in the hospital's administrative wing. Signing my name off our house and adding his mistress's. Her name is Sloane Hart." A deep dark red crept up Franklin's neck, but it was not the blush of shame, it was the flush of rage. He did what? The words were low, almost a whisper. He documented it. He used a hospital notary. Of all the idiotic, arrogant, sloppy, he cut himself off. But the word hung in the air. Sloppy. That was it. That was the sin. Not the betrayal of his wife, not the moral horror of the act. It was the sheer, documented stupidity of it. He had created a paper trail. He had put the time, date, and location of his crime on a public document. "He thought I was weak," I said, my voice as cold as his. "He thought I was too broken by childbirth to notice. He thought I was just a hormonal woman you could discard. He thought he was untouchable. This is..." Franklin shook his head, his fury visible. "This is a public relations catastrophe. A child. A wife in labor. This is the kind of thing that ends careers. It's indefensible." "Oh, it gets worse. Franklin," I said. "He wasn't just sloppy, he was criminal. Turn to page 5. He flipped the pages, his anger making the movement sharp. "A loan application. A $5 million loan application," I said. "For a new hotel project in New Mexico, Caldwell Meridian letterhead. He's using the company name to secure it." "He's expanding," Franklin said, though his voice was tight. "He's stealing," I countered. "The New Mexico project is a shell. Miguel Torres, my investigator, confirmed it. It's an empty lot and a P.O. box, and the collateral your son used to secure that $5 million loan." I paused, letting him get there first. His eyes widened. "The house?" he whispered. "The Everline house, the one he just illegally transferred. He stole my house to leverage it for $5 million in cash," I stated. "He's planning to take the money, let the New Mexico project fail, and let the bank foreclose on the collateral. He and Sloane Hart walk away with $5 million, cash-free, and I'm left homeless, with a foreclosed asset tied to my name, and he's doing it all using your company." The mask of the patriarch was gone. This was pure, cold fury. He understood. His son wasn't just a cheater. He was an embezzler. He was risking the entire Caldwell Meridian brand, the legacy Franklin had spent 50 years building, all for a greedy, traceable, public crime. "He's leveraging my name, my company, to fund his affair," Franklin said, his voice a low growl. "He's stealing from me. He's stealing from this family. And that," I said, "is where our interests align." He finally leaned back, steepling his fingers. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in the 5 years I had known him. "What do you want? Scarlett? A settlement? A new house? A quiet divorce? A trust for the child? Name your price. I'll make this go away." This was the pivot, the moment the power in the room shifted from his desk to my chair. "I don't want your money. Franklin, I don't want a settlement. I already have a house. He just doesn't know it yet." His eyebrows rose. I want him to lose everything, I said, my voice quiet but absolute. I want him to lose his job, his reputation, and his freedom. I want him to be exposed, publicly, for exactly what he is. But I have no interest in destroying the company you built. Only the man who is actively trying to— You want to save the Caldwell name, I continued, laying out the deal. I want to destroy your sons. We can do both, in one night. Go on. Damon and Sloan are planning a party. A celebration for the 500-unit milestone at the Everline house. She's planning it. She's acting as the hostess. He's planning to use it to cement his status as the new king of Colorado real estate. I've heard, Franklin said, his lip curling in disgust. I want you to make that party bigger, I said. I want you to call in every favor. I want you to personally invite every major developer, every banker, every city council member, and every partner you've ever had. I want that room filled with the people whose respect he craves, the people he thinks he's surpassed. Franklin's eyes were chips of ice. You want to humiliate him in front of my oldest associates. I want to stop him, I said. And I want the right people to see exactly why he's being stopped. You, Franklin, get to be the savior, the strong patriarch, cutting the rot out of your own company before it spreads. You are the legacy. He is the reckless new generation. I'm giving you the narrative to save your brand. He almost smiled. He liked it. There's one more thing, I said. I need you to add 3 names to your personal guest list. They need to be there casually, just old friends. Who? Mr. Davies. He's the chief investigator for the County Financial Crimes Unit. Harper Quinn has already sent him a file on Damon's embezzlement. Just the financial part. He's interested. He just doesn't know the motive yet. You've already gone to the investigators. Of course, I said. And second, Assistant District Attorney Reyes. She's a friend of Harper's. She has a particular interest in notary fraud and perjury. He was silent for a long time. You are asking me to invite a prosecutor and a county investigator into my home to arrest my son. I'm asking you to set the stage, I replied. I'll handle the curtain. I give you my word your name, Franklin, and the legacy of Caldwell Meridian will be protected. This will be Damon's mistake. Damon's, and Damon's alone. He made his choice. Now you make yours. The deal was on the table. His legacy, for his son. He stood up, walked to the vast window, and looked down at the city he had built. He was always arrogant, he said, his back to me. But this is a failure of intellect, a failure of character. He turned back. He never appreciated you. Scarlett, I always thought you were quiet, soft. I see now that I mistook quiet for weak. It appears my son made the same fatal mistake. Will you make the calls? Franklin. He walked back to his desk and tapped the file. The party is this Tuesday. I will make sure it is the event of the season. Everyone who matters will be there. I stood and walked to the door. I left the file on his desk. Scarlett, I turned. Ensure that he is completely and thoroughly ruined. Franklin Caldwell said, Do not be merciful. This family does not abide weakness. And what he did. It was the weakest thing I have ever seen. The day of the party, our house. My house was a beautiful ticking bomb. Every flower arrangement, every carefully placed champagne flute was part of the mechanism. The air hummed with a tension that only I could feel. Sloan, in her infinite arrogance, had been managing the event. She had emailed me a PDF of her choices 2 weeks ago. Just so you're in the loop, Scarlett, I've handled everything. Don't you worry your head about it. She had chosen a fussy, overpriced caterer from Denver, known for deconstructed food. She didn't know that I had called them a week ago, canceled the order, and forfeited the deposit. It was a small price to pay. The company now setting up in my kitchen was Everline Catering, a high-end service I had hired, whose owner was a former client from BrightPath. She knew what it was to be erased by a man, and she was loyal to me. I'd had her print a fake set of invoices and work orders on the letterhead of Sloane's preferred company. When Sloane arrived, she would see the right name on the clipboards and assume, like she assumed everything, that the world had bent to her will. The second piece of the trap was installed that morning. A massive 80-inch flat-screen monitor was mounted over the marble fireplace, the very one Sloane had posed by. I'd had it delivered while Damon was at a site meeting. When he came home, he'd stopped dead. What the hell is that? Scar? I'd given him my best, fragile, watery smile. For the party. I wanted everyone to see her, see Avery. I had a USB drive in my hand, labeled Avery's First Months. I made a little slideshow, all our friends. They haven't seen her yet. I thought it would be nice. He looked at me, at the screen, and the calculation was plain on his face. She's nesting. She's being a mom. It's pathetic. But a slideshow of his beautiful new daughter, it was perfect PR. It humanized him. That's actually a good idea. Scar, he'd said, his voice softening with that terrible, condescending kindness. Sweet. That's really sweet. The USB drive in my hand was a prop. The real feed would come from Harper. Harper was not at the party. She was in a suite at the Everline Hotel, a half-mile away, with a direct line of sight to our house. She had a high-speed, dedicated internet line. Her laptop was loaded with the final package, the video file of Sloane in the nursery, the audio of Damon's call with his advisor, the hospital security footage of him walking to the notary's office at exactly 9 o'clock, on my signal. She would send the email to the entire, curated guest list. The screen over the fireplace was hardwired to her computer. My phone vibrated. A text from Miguel. He was set up at the main gate, dressed as a valet, his body cam rolling. Target vehicle acquired. Black Porsche Macan. License plate, Slowheart. Match confirmed on invoices 42 and 51 for Hart Materials, LLC. She's here, and she's on camera. I sent the screenshot of his text to Harper, who forwarded it to Assistant District Attorney Reyes, the final piece linking Sloane, her car, and the fraudulent invoices was now in the prosecutor's hands, before she even had a glass of champagne. Another buzz. Tessa. File 94BA821. Quitclaim deed. Caldwell/Hart. Status changed from pending final review to public access. As of right now, anyone on the county portal can see it. Good luck. I took a deep breath. The trap was live. I went upstairs to get dressed. I had hidden the outfit from Damon. He was used to seeing me in stained yoga pants and his old college sweatshirts. He expected the unstable postpartum wife. I emerged from my closet as Scarlett West. I wore a black, impeccably tailored jumpsuit. It was sharp, severe, and powerful. My hair was pulled back in a sleek, tight chignon. My makeup was flawless. My lipstick a deep, blood red. I was not a victim. I was a CEO about to conduct a hostile takeover. I looked in the mirror. The woman who had cried in the hospital was gone. The woman who had played the fool was gone. I was the coordinator from BrightPath. I was the woman who built files and burned men down with paperwork. I heard her arrive. Sloane, always early, always in white. I looked out the window and watched her step out of her Porsche. She was wearing a white cocktail dress. Tight, expensive, and utterly inappropriate for a corporate event. It was a wedding dress, in miniature, a declaration. She strode into the foyer, and I heard her voice, sharp and commanding, directed at the catering staff, my catering staff. Okay, let's get moving. I want the champagne tower here, by the window, not there. Who approved this layout? It's all wrong. The manager, my client, just nodded. Yes, ma'am. Right away, ma'am. Sloane didn't even look at the invoices. She just assumed her power was absolute. She didn't know that her social security number, the one she'd used to register her shell companies, had been sitting in A.D.A. Reyes's inbox for 3 days, matched against the bank accounts that had received over $200,000 in kickbacks from Apex Construction. The guests began to arrive, the real guests, the ones Franklin had called. The titans of Colorado real estate, the bank presidents who held Damon's loans, the city council members he was actively bribing, and with them, casually, arrived Mr. Davies, the county investigator, and Acadi A. Reyes. Looking bored and networked, Franklin was already there, a pillar of gravitas by the stairs, greeting them all, a somber host. Then, Damon arrived. He was the last, of course, the star. He was wearing a custom blue suit, his hair perfect, his smile 1,000,000 watts. He kissed Sloane, a quick, proprietary peck on the cheek, right in the middle of the foyer. A public claim. He saw me at the top of the stairs, and his smile wavered for a fraction of a second. This was not the broken woman he had left this morning. "Scarlett," he said, walking up to me. "Wow, you cleaned up. It's a big night." "Damon," I said, my voice smooth as silk. "It is," he said, his confidence surging back. He pulled a small, folded card from his jacket pocket. "Just a few words I jotted down, for later." "A speech?" "Just a small announcement," he said, patting my arm. "About the future, about, rearranging our family's assets, making things simpler, now that you're not feeling 100%. He was going to announce it. He was going to stand in front of everyone who mattered and spin the story of his noble, burdened husband taking over for his sick wife. He was going to publicly declare his own crime. I smiled at him. "I can't wait to hear it, Damon." I walked past him, down into the living room. The room was packed. It was hot, loud, and filled with the worst people in Everline. And every single one of them was holding a smartphone. They were taking selfies. They were recording the ambiance. They were documenting their proximity to power. They were all cameras. They were all witnesses. I knew that whatever happened in the next 10 minutes would not be a private family drama. It would be a viral event. It would be on Instagram, on Twitter, on every local news blog before the police even arrived. The trap was not just set. The audience was seated. The prey was on stage, tapping the microphone, ready to begin his own execution. The grandfather clock chimed 9. Damon, energized by the crowd, stepped up to the small, cleared space by the fireplace. He tapped a champagne flute with a spoon. The ringing sound cut through the noise, and the room quieted. "Friends, partners," he began, his voice booming with a confidence that turned my stomach to stone. "Thank you. Thank you for coming to our home tonight. Our home. We are celebrating 500 units, but we are really celebrating the future of Everline, the future of Caldwell Meridian." He smiled, that blinding $1,000,000 smile. I couldn't have done this without my team, and I especially couldn't have managed the last few months without the incredible support of Sloane Hart. He gestured to her. Sloane, standing near him, beamed, accepting the applause. She was being presented as the partner. Sloane has been an absolute rock, stepping in to help manage, everything, while my wife, Scarlett, has been struggling with her recovery after the baby. He looked over at me, his smile softening into that practiced mask of concern. "It's been a hard road, and we're all so proud of how brave she's being." It was the line. The self-incriminating, perfectly delivered line. He had just told a room full of the most powerful people in Colorado that I was incapacitated. A polite, pitying applause rippled through the room for me. The broken wife. Before he could continue, I raised my hand, my voice clear and carrying. "Damon, that's so kind. Would you mind if I said something?" He was visibly thrown. This was not in his script. "Oh, Scarlett, sure, of course." I walked to the front, standing a few feet away from him. I looked at the crowd, at the bankers, the developers, at my father-in-law. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice steady. "It means so much to have you here, in the house that I and Damon bought together. Right after our wedding," I emphasized the I. I saw Sloane's smile tighten. Damon looked annoyed. "It's the home where I brought my daughter, Avery, home from the hospital. I continued. And Damon, you're right. It has been a hard road. I looked up at the 80-inch screen above the fireplace, where the Avery slideshow logo was innocuously glowing. Signal, I whispered. The screen flickered. The logo vanished. A black and white image appeared. A time code burned in the bottom corner. It was a hospital hallway. The murmuring in the room stopped. What is this? Damon hissed, looking at the screen. Shh, I said. This is the best part. A figure appeared on the screen. It was Damon. He walked out of a hospital room. My room. LD4 and looked at his phone. He walked briskly down the hall. Away from me. The time code on the screen read 03:16 p.m. That's, a woman in the front row whispered. That's the hospital. The video froze on his back. Then, the screen changed. It was a high-resolution scan of a document, a quitclaim deed. That's our house, Damon said, his voice a panicked whisper. Scarlett, what the hell is this? Turn it off. I can't, I said. It's public record. The screen zoomed in. On the grantor line, Scarlett West Caldwell, a thick black line was struck through my name. On the grantee line, Sloane Hart. A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. Then the camera panned down, to the notary stamp. Date October 14th. Time 03:22 p.m. The exact moment he was on camera. The exact moment, as noted in the medical file I was about to send them, that the doctor had written, Patient is fully dilated, commencing active pushing. Damon's face went from pale to a waxy, greenish-white. The whispers were venomous. Oh my God. While she was in labor. He put her name on it. I saw two of the younger wives of Damon's partners look at their husbands with a sudden, chilling suspicion, and then look back at Damon with pure, unadulterated disgust. My phone buzzed in my pocket, the signal from Harper. A moment later, a chorus of buzzes and pings filled the silent room. Every phone, every purse, every pocket. They looked confused, then pulled them out. Franklin Caldwell, A.D. Reyes, Mr. Davies, the president of the bank. They all looked down, and they all read the same subject line from Harper's email. Report, fraudulent asset transfer and conspiracy to defraud during postpartum medical incapacitation. Scarlett, this is a misunderstanding, Damon shouted, finally finding his voice. It's a mistake. We were just managing assets to protect our family, to protect Scarlett while she was unwell. Unwell. I asked. Before he could answer, the screen changed again. It was in full, vivid color. My video, the nursery, Sloane Hart, in a sharp power suit, pointing at my grandmother's rocking chair. We all heard her voice, crystal clear, amplified by the surround sound speakers Damon had been so proud of. Let's get this out of here. It's going to Goodwill. She's not going to need it. She probably won't be here long. Anyway, the blood drained from Sloane's face. She looked at Damon, her eyes wide with terror. The "we were just helping" narrative had just been executed, live, in front of 100 witnesses. Mr. Caldwell? The voice cut through the chaos like a scalpel. It was A.D.A. Reyes. She had not looked up from her phone. She stepped forward, her expression academic. Mr. Caldwell, she repeated. On the 19th of last month, did you use this property, the one listed in this deed, as the sole collateral to secure a $5 million line of credit for a project in New Mexico? The bankers in the room froze. This was their business. Damon was trapped. He looked at the bank president, who was staring at him, horrified. He looked at the prosecutor. He couldn't lie. He couldn't confess. That's a corporate, he stammered. It's a yes or no question, sir, Reyes said, her voice dangerously quiet. Before he could answer, another voice boomed across the room. Damon, it was Franklin Caldwell. He stepped forward, his face a perfect mask of shock and profound betrayal. He looked, for all the world, like a father who had just been stabbed. "Damon," he repeated, his voice shaking with feigned rage. "Is this true? This document, the date, your wife. She was in labor. You did this while my grandchild was being born." He was separating himself. He was performing for the investors, for the partners, for the law. "This is not who we are," Franklin declared, his voice full of gravel and sorrow. "This is not how Caldwell Meridian does business. This is not how I raised you." That was the signal. The moment the patriarch publicly abandoned his son, Sloane saw it. She saw the life she had been grasping for, the money, the status, vaporize. She saw the prosecutor. She saw the investigator. And she did exactly what Miguel said she would do. She panicked. "It was his idea," she shrieked, pointing a trembling, manicured finger at Damon. "All of it. It was his idea, he told me. He told me it was all legal. He told me Scarlett had already agreed. He said he had her permission. He told me the paperwork was already signed by her." A new silence fell, a colder one. Damon stared at her, his mouth open. She had just, in front of a prosecutor, accused him of forgery. She had confirmed the conspiracy. The air, which had been buzzing with champagne and laughter, was now thick and cold, like a morgue. The party was over. This was an interrogation. Phones were out, not for selfies, but to record the collapse. Damon looked from his father's righteous fury to Sloane's panicked betrayal, to Reyes's cold, calculating stare. He was utterly, hopelessly ruined. He finally turned his eyes to me. The hatred in them was pure. "You," he whispered. "You, crazy bitch." I just looked at him. I let him see the cold, clear sanity in my eyes. I hadn't even begun to fight. This was the opening. This was the flurry of punches to get him on the ropes. He thought this was the end. He didn't know about the internal family gift agreement. He didn't know about the final move that made all of this, all of his desperate, stupid crimes, not just immoral, but completely, irrevocably, and pathetically void. He stared at me, the words, "crazy bitch," hanging in the air. The last pathetic defense of a cornered animal. Sloane was babbling, promising to cooperate. Franklin was already on the phone with his corporate attorneys, rebuilding his fortress. I ignored them all. I walked past Damon, stopping in front of Assistant District Attorney Reyes. Reyes, I said, my voice calm. "Sloane is right about one thing. Damon did tell her I no longer had a say in the paperwork. He was operating under the assumption that the power of attorney he used in the hospital gave him total control over my assets." I reached into the pocket of my jumpsuit. Not a phone, a single, folded, heavyweight piece of paper. "This is what he didn't know," I said. I handed the document to Mr. Davies, who read it, his eyes widening, and passed it to Reyes. "What is this?" Damon spat. "More of your your lies." "This," Reyes said, her voice sharp with sudden professional interest, "is an internal family gift agreement, notarized, dated October 1st, 2 weeks before your daughter was born." "It's a private family agreement," I explained, my voice carrying across the silent room, to the bankers, to the partners, to my father-in-law. "An agreement between me and my mother, in consideration of Avery's future. I gifted 50% of my 50% interest in this house directly to her, to be held in trust. Harper Quinn filed it with the county recorder's office this afternoon. It is now part of the official property record." Damon's face was a mask of blank confusion. He wasn't a lawyer. He was just a thief. Reyes spelled it out for him, her voice like a judge's gavel. "Mr. Caldwell, this means that when you walked into that hospital notary's office on October 14th, you did not have the authority to transfer 100% of your wife's share. You only had authority over the 25% she still owned. But you transferred all of it. You transferred an asset that belonged to her mother. You used a POA to sign on behalf of a person who was not, in fact, the full legal owner of the asset you were transferring. She looked at Davies. This isn't just a voidable transfer. This is felony notary fraud. He knowingly misrepresented the assets on a state document. You thought you were so clever, I said. Finally looking at Damon, the ice in my veins felt like strength. You thought I was weak. You thought I was too busy, too pained, too postpartum to read the fine print. You thought you could abandon me in the delivery room to go sign your papers, but you were too late. Damon, I had already beaten you, 2 weeks before. While you were consolidating my accounts and taking Sloan to dinner, I was at a notary's office with my mother, signing the one document that would lock this house down forever. Mr. Davies's phone, which had been buzzing nonstop, rang with an urgent single tone. He answered it. Davies? Yes, I'm at the property now. What? Yes, I'm looking at the fraudulent deed as we speak. The collateral is completely compromised. Freeze it. Freeze the New Mexico transfer now, and freeze every associated account linked to Damon Caldwell and Sloan Hart. It's an active crime scene. He hung up. The president of the bank Damon had secured the loan from looked like he was going to vomit. The loan, he whispered, horrified. The $5 million loan, it's frozen. The collateral was secured illegally, Davies said, his voice leaving no room for argument. It never belonged to Mr. Caldwell to pledge. Your bank has a major problem, but Mr. Caldwell has a bigger one. The partners, the men Damon had spent his life trying to impress, descended. The New Mexico project, it's fraudulent. What did you do? Damon, you tied us to this. She's lying, Damon roared, backed against the fireplace, his eyes wild. I was protecting my family. She is unstable. I have proof I have a doctor's diagnosis. She's mentally unwell. I was acting in her best interest. Were you? I asked. I held up my phone. I didn't need the big screen. I just pressed play. In the dead silent room, Damon's voice, his real voice, the one from the bugged car, filled the air. She's a complete mess. Total adjustment disorder. We have the diagnosis. Honestly, she'll sign anything I put in front of her right now. As long as I tell her it's for the baby, we are absolutely clear to leverage the asset. Move the $5 million. I stopped the recording. That, I said to Reyes, was his call to his financial advisor, the day after he forced me to see his doctor. That is not concern. That is conspiracy to exploit a temporary medical condition for financial gain. Sloan Hart made a sound, a high-pitched, tearing sob. This was it. She saw the prison cell, the frozen accounts, her name tied to a felony. He told me, she screamed, lunging not at me, but at Damon. You told me she was off the deed. You told me she was crazy. You said she had no legal standing. You used me. You put my name on a fraudulent loan. It was all your idea. Damon, all of it. Her public, complete, and total betrayal was the final nail. Franklin Caldwell stepped into the center of the room, raising his hand for silence. His face was a mask of cold, regal duty. He was saving the brand. This is a dark day, he boomed. This company, my life's work, was built on integrity. This betrayal, cannot stand. Effective immediately. Damon Caldwell is suspended from all duties, all executive privileges, and all accounts at Caldwell Meridian. The board will cooperate fully with the district attorney's office. We will find the rot, and we will cut it out. Damon looked at his father, his face broken. He had lost his company. He looked at Sloan, who was now weeping hysterically to Reyes. He had lost his mistress. He turned, his face contorted in a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. He had nothing left to lose. You, he whispered, his voice cracking. You did this. You're sick. You're crazy. You manipulative. He couldn't even find the words. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just held up my phone. waking the screen. But I didn't play a recording. I just showed him the lock screen. It was a photo of Avery, sleeping in her bassinet at my mother's house, her face peaceful, her tiny hand curled by her cheek. She was safe. She was nowhere near this. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" I said, my voice quiet, cutting through his rage. "She's healthy, and she's not here to be used as your shield, or your excuse, or your PR." I put the phone back in my pocket. "I am going to raise our daughter in this house, the one you tried, and failed, to steal from us, the one that is now, and will always be, 100% mine, and every month, for the next 18 years, you will sign a child support check. You will sign it from whatever bank account they let you have in prison. That is your sentence. You don't get to disappear with your $5 million. You just get to pay." I looked at Reyes. "Get him out of my house." A. Reyes nodded. "Damon Caldwell, you need to come downtown to answer some questions regarding conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, and perjury on a notarized document." "What about me?" Sloane cried, clutching her white dress. "Ms. Hart," Reyes said, not unkindly, "as a material witness, co-signatory on a fraudulent deed, and the sole proprietor of several LLCs currently under investigation for embezzlement. Yes, you'll be coming too." The party was over. The guests began to file out, silent, horrified, not making eye contact. It was an exodus of money and power, fleeing the smell of death. The room emptied. Franklin was the last to leave. He paused at the door and looked at me. A long, calculating look. It was not kindness. It was respect. He nodded once, then he was gone. The room was silent. The smell of champagne and perfume hung in the air. I looked down at the white Italian tile, at the glittering shards of the champagne flute I had dropped. It felt like 100 years ago. I was alone, in my house. I unclenched my right fist. The cut on my palm, the one from the broken glass, had long since stopped bleeding. A thin, dark line of dried blood was caked on my skin. I rubbed it away, wiping the last of it on my black jumpsuit. And for the first time since I'd heard that hospital door click shut, I let out my breath. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Let me know in the comments where you are listening from. I'd love to hear from you and share your thoughts. Please subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and hit that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.